So thank you very much for your presence. I'm very happy that we have such a large engaged audience today. As you know, as part of the RRR projects, we are having this new participatory way of evaluating the projects that we are getting funded for. So today I will first invite our Dr. Wei Ju. I don't see you, Wei Ju. Please, can you come as the first candidate to present your research? And yes, please.
I think you have to present
Of the well, why you do it? Okay. And so the idea of this participatory session about watching the project in a catwalk. We are going to follow some steps, and our researchers are going to present what are the RRI in their projects and what they are offering to society and to knowledge. And so the first thing that they have to do is to emancipate themselves and emancipate us, so we can, as stakeholders here present, analyze if we are in agreement with his project, and if we think that his project has high quality or valid methods. So please, Wei Ju, can you join me at the stage?
I will be honored. As you see, we have developed this catwalk for me, so I'm supposed to be naked by design, but I think it's not appropriate to put on our website, so I keep my clothes on. Yes, I'm a researcher, and my project is about numerical simulation for coastal environment. And that project is based on, so I first will emancipate myself to come into a realization of reality. So what kind of world we live in right now? So we live in a world that we have climate change, and we are facing sea level rise and a lot of challenges. In this specific world condition, we will see that our coastal communities and coastal ecology is very vulnerable. So in this case, we can do two things. One is that we try to minimize the impact of climate change. So for example, we use green energy and we reduce emission. On the other hand, also very important is that we need to consider these future scenarios and protect our coast in this changing climate and make adaptations in the new future scenarios. So that's where I come in. So then we talk about we have to evaluate my intention and what is the outcome. So my intention would be that we should develop the toolbox and methodology that actually help us to understand what kind of future scenario we are talking about, so that we can devise policies and methods accordingly. And the direct delivery from my project would be an open source numerical model. We use numerical model because there are countless of scenarios, and like for example from IPCC, we have different uncertainty of what kind of sea level rise would be, and it's very hard to reproduce everything in the real world. So with numerical model, it's very flexible. So we can really try to investigate a whole set of scenarios in future. So that's a delivery that I would like to address. And then we also actually try to reflect on ourselves. So you have stakeholders, and from project point of view, let's see what we can address the concerns of stakeholders. For example, we will have a conversation with the governments and the local communities, and they will ask us, how accurate is your model, for example? Because if we predict a disaster scenario, they might have to evacuate local people, so the politicians will take responsibility. In this case, I would have to see that we should keep transparency, because even though I do research, but there is uncertainty involved, and I have to be honest and transparent to the politician that there is uncertainty. We try to validate our model based on today's data and to make it as accurate as possible, but we also need to face this uncertainty, and we need to sit together to devise the good scenario with the bad scenarios. So I don't want to oversell, like my model just can't tell you what the future is. So I would call these methodologies transparency and science politics. So science politics should be coupled along the way. So we also want to hear what politicians see. And we also thought about, we are very academic in our ivory tower. So actually there are a lot of knowledge out there. For example, the indigenous people has been living in their coast community for like 1,000 years. So they might have valuable knowledge and experience that I never thought about. So we want to have some panels and seminars to invite tea talks, coffee talks with indigenous people, local community, fishermen, to hear what input they have in our modeling. So I call it epistemology. I managed to pronounce it. And we also thought about, so who would thought about our project in different view, and that is global warming is a global phenomena. So we are actually not really talking about certain region, but we're talking about the global. So we need to think about this diversity. Different regions have different realities and scenarios. So we want to include everyone in this project. So that's also why we keep the model open source, so that everyone can use it. Say you are from Africa, and I don't know anything about African coast, but with our model and as framework, you can just modify, implement your own part inside the model that specifically adapt to your region. So I would call this methodology as open source and inclusion. So that's my presentation. I'm ready to open to the questions from our stakeholder board.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate such a broad project with so many concerns already included. Wow, you did a great job anticipating it. And valid methods and also a diverse methods. Although you are doing modeling, you are presenting different kind of open access, also participatory conversation with different stakeholders. But well, I will ask if the stakeholders believe that he's good to go to the lab, or should we put him to the more reflexivity part? Good to go to the lab? Please go modeling and men.
Thank you very much.
Now we have another project. It's from our Dr. Tanguy, and he's going to tell us what he's going to be funded to do so.
Thank you so much. So, I'd like to raise the very crucial issue of resilience. In a very specific region that we agree that we don't know very well. This region is the Arctic, and I will focus my project on a specific community, which is Itokotormis, which is on the east coast of Greenland. So, the idea is to see what those resilience mean for that community. As a cliché, we often describe indigenous people, such as Inuits, as the ideal type of being resilient, being adaptable, something like that. But the fact is, the voice of indigenous people are not well heard. There is only a few stories about resilience raised from indigenous people. So, the project aim is to collect local stories of resilience and to try to question at the same time. This is my emancipatory aim, to question my dominant space in that world. I'm from Europe. I'm a white male. I'm an heterosexual cisgender. So I'm really in the good box of the story. So this project aims also to question my position as researcher, my posture, to investigate non-European societies and to see whatever I can or not share their story and use my powerful position, the position of science, because as scientists we all know that we are kind of authority. So it's, for me, it's crucial to see how we use this authority, this power of knowledge to shape the world we want. So this is my intentionality. Expected outcomes, I cannot detail outcomes because those outcomes are mainly from people I will meet there. So basically, I'm not the one who will define outcomes, but I would like to those outcomes being aligned with the values I just expressed before. And yeah, basically that's all for me. I'm very open for your question and whatever.
Thank you very much. That was a very complex project that you're presenting here. Because I hear some, well, effort of doing epistemology from the others and ethnography, maybe some oral history. And, but I don't know if, as you say, outcomes are not very clear, so perhaps our stakeholders want to say that intentionality and outcomes are not very aligned. Is there any questions from our stakeholders? Yes, please. Who are you and what is your question?
I am a representative of the indigenous community, and I like your project. I think it has good intentions. I am a little bit concerned that this is perhaps yet another way of going into a local community, mining for knowledge, taking it out, and turning our knowledge into a kind of theory, scientific theory, or theory of Western academia. So I want to know how much knowledge do you actually have about our community? How are you planning on getting that knowledge? And how will you bring something back to our community in order to not just make use of it for your own good?
So what I heard from what you say is it's just about the history of science being colonial in a way, right? And I totally agree that there is colonial reminiscences in our current world. So I'm not sure, I have to be honest, I'm not sure my project will help you in a way. But what I know is that you will have space to express your experience, your knowledge. And as I said just before, I will give you this space and I will give you my authority to share what you want to share with the world, with the outside world. So I will say, in an easy way for me, it's up to you.
Yes, please. Another question. Who are you? What is your question?
Right. Thinking about your conversation, I'm actually just a common citizen in the EU, and you know, EU actually introduced some privacy law recently, not recently, but yeah. So we really care about privacy, and I personally have been fighting for these laws. So you are talking about sharing the stories and knowledges of the indigenous people, but so you need to collect a lot of their data. How do you address the privacy of indigenous people so that we don't invade their life?
Okay. I have two levels of answering. First, we have very high level of anonymization in social sciences. So we get sure that when we make interviews or a participant observation, we make clear to people that we won't use that data in a way that they don't want to. And this is part of the anonymization process. And the second level of your question is, I don't think we can use this concept of privacy, which emerged from Western countries in a non-Western part of the world. And you have to know that this is not so clear that people in the very small village of Itokotomit don't want to be quoted. Usually, they just want their voice to be heard and their name to be quoted. So I will just make it clear for the people, and a new privacy framework will emerge from this.
Yes, please, another question.
Yes, I'm another social scientist, and my question would be, so if you have some outcomes, how can I put them as a fellow researcher in a different context so we can make use of the information?
Yeah, I see. So you have to know that the project I'm involved in is involving actually 3 communities: Itokotormits, Umanak on the west coast, and Tiksi in Siberia. So the idea is to use these case studies as example, but not at the example is not the finality what we will show, but which kind of methods we will implement in this area. So we will provide insight to implement this kind of method in such different places, taking into account that every place have cultural roots, and we should be careful with this.
Thanks.
Yes, please, another question there.
I'm economist from Greenland, so you were not really clear about the finality of your project. But the thing is that the thing that I'm concerned about is okay, we will invest in that project. What are the possible outcomes for the indigenous people and countries like others that are funding that project? So what's the beneficial for the indigenous people there? Will you use the human resources there, or just use the foreigners?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think we can just think in terms of economic outcomes. There is plenty of outcomes. But if I have to focus on economics outcomes, you have to know as well that I'm going there. I will try to learn East Greenlandic language. To do so, I will need a translator, I will need a teacher. And those people from these very small communities where there is there is less and less employment, so these people, teacher, traducer, will be paid for that. So we will directly invest the project's money in the local communities. And another outcome is we are working in very small communities, not well known. So in a way, my work will be also to make some advertising, to put some light on this community. And this could be very useful when we know that Greenland have a big issue in developing tourism in the coming years. So, yeah.
Any other question? Yes, please.
So, as a local representative of the communities in these villages in Greenland, I'm interested in how is your project going to contribute to revitalizing the economy of the area, to preserve the traditional lifestyle and to give shed light to this community so that they can keep living through their traditional economical sustain and kind of keep these just lifestyle and traditions. And also, I'm very worried as well as to are you going to kind of report to us along your project? Is there going to be a like these regulations and controls so that you can kind of come back to us and give us feedback on what's happening and how is the project moving forward? You're moving and achieving some deliverables, and if you were expecting the possible outcomes to change, the things that you can give back to the community. So two things as well. These kind of regulations, and also how can we revitalize these communities close?
So the answer of your first question, which is about, I'm trying to figure it out.
Revitalizing, yes. Revitalizing the lifestyle of these communities through your project.
Yeah.
your research.
So what I didn't mention is that this community is running a kind of existential risk. Few years ago, the local authorities moved to the capital city of Greenland. So there is no anymore authorities in this village. So I hope my work will contribute in giving power to local actors such as hunters to be heard in governance process in this area. And the second question, can you remind me?
Yes, we want to kind of have a step-by-step checkup
Got it.
and feedback on your project.
Got
Are you planning on reporting back to us about progress?
Yeah. So my main method is called grounded theory. That means that I will go to the field, collect story. I will try myself to make sense of that story, and then I will go back to the field to make a check, as you said, to check if my interpretation, the way I frame all that stories, make sense for local villagers. And if not, we will rework on this in a way that the work I'm producing will be shared understanding of the current situation in this area. So it's kind of iterative work. I will go to field work, go back on, trying to figure it out, and check, and again, it's very iterative.
Is there any more questions? Yes, please. I am someone that I definitely am not. But what I hear here is a bunch of fancy words, nice narrative, great way of putting together, but weird nomenclature like cisgender, come on. And as a white European male, I feel very oppressed. I feel that I am losing opportunities. I feel that all this rule about, giving voice is just getting my life harder, making my life really hard. And is this science? Are you producing knowledge? What kind of method is that? You're going to be there with just a small community. What is this valid for? I mean, nice questions, but give me more.
Agreed. Time is really older and older for us. It's very hard to live with. But I think you're from Western country, right?
Yes.
You are. We all believe in the Western world, like freedom, emancipation are important value. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So tell me if my project is not emancipatory and in not giving freedom.
So, okay, do we have an agreement that our researcher here can go to the field? You are good to go.
Tusen tack.
Those were our projects for today. Thank you very much for coming and participating. And yes, thank you very much.